Hello there, fellow victims, strugglers against the great vast forces of life. Hello. What's the matter? Don't look worried. It's all right. Everything's under control. Absolutely. Our guest tonight is Zsa Zsa Gabor. There's Vic. Hello, Victor Borga. How are you? Still doing the same old act with the piano? Yeah, all right. I'm off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. But hey, listen. The other night, just by coincidence, we did a thing from the George Ade canon. Speaking of canons, we did a George Ade canon thing, and it got a great reaction. You know, I'm an old Ade fan, and I must admit that most humorous types, people who work in the field of humor professionally, and I have to concede that's what I work in. A lot of people don't want to be called humorists. You know that, don't you? A lot of writers. Oh, no, because a humorist is never taken seriously as either a performer or a writer. Oh, not by official people. No way. It's only after he's long dead and they resurrect his work that he becomes Mark Twain or Ambrose Bierce and so on. But I would like to do a George Ade thing here tonight, if I may. You don't mind, do you? Oh, you do, huh? Well, the hell with you. You know, the back of my head here. Give me a little humanity music, please. Just a little humanity there, please. Humanity. This is very provocative of mankind, marching forward, ever upward, ever onward, galloping and blowing his horns and waving his hat in the air, you know, with the flags flying. My God, look at those signs, the pennants and the banners, yes. We'd like to salute mankind as it goes charging towards the great abyss. I think a little Jew's harp wouldn't hurt you. You think so, Corny? You like that when I do that, huh? Hold it. What happened? Yeah, technicality here. Gee, technique. Tell you, if man counts on his machine, he's going to be in dire trouble. Did you like that? Did you enjoy that, Corny? Fine. I'll give you a brass figuree with bronze oak leaf palm if you can tell me the commercials, if you have recognized the commercials upon which I professionally play the Jew's harp. I'm talking about TV commercials. Do you know any? Have you ever heard it? Oh, yeah, here's what I wanted to do. This piece of American-type music, Mankind Marching Over the Cliff, gets us started just correctly. And before we get going with a few of these Ade fables here tonight, I have a couple of little commercials here for you. Here's good news for New Jersey eyeglass wearers. You can get quality glasses while you shop at Hillman Cohan Vision Center in Brunswick Square Shopping Center of East Brunswick. Hillman Cohan. They have all kinds of frames, even for people, I presume, who have three eyes, all sorts of frames. They've got them over there, over 5,000 of them. Lenses in all tints, including photo gray and photo sun. Everything for everybody who wears specs. So do you have that little jingle in there? Hit it.
Put on a happy face at your vision center.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Get the great eyeglass guarantee at Hillman Cohan Vision Center in Brunswick Square Shopping Center, Route 18, in colorful East Brunswick. They can take Bank AmeriCard and Master Charge, which is not bad.
This is Tommy Makem. I'm sitting in the John Barleycorn, located at 209 East 45th Street, just off 3rd Avenue. The John Barleycorn is New York's first and most famous Irish singing pub. If you want a sample of what Irish hospitality is really like, you should come in and soak up the atmosphere. The hospitality is warm, the people are cheerful, and the service is just fantastic. They have an old saying at the Barleycorn: there are no strangers here, only friends you haven't met. And you can prove that to yourself by dropping in anytime. You can have lunch, dinner, or supper 7 days a week, and a good time all the time. The food is fit for royalty, and as a matter of fact, some of the recipes have been handed down from the courts of Irish kings. The John Barleycorn, the Irish oasis in Midtown Manhattan.
And got that rice thing in there? Goody.
Carolina is New York's #1 rice because all those fine long grains cook up so moist and fluffy. That means Carolina tastes perfect, and so will everything you serve with it. Give your family the #1 rice in New York. Give them Carolina, New York's #1. And now Carolina has something different for rice mix lovers. Flavored rice dishes. Introducing Carolina's Bake It Easy. 4 great new flavored rice dishes that cook up steamy moist every time because you bake them in your oven. There's no mess because new Bake It Easy bakes in its own steamer tray in just 15 minutes. Try all 4 flavors of new Bake It Easy. You'll love them because they're new from
Hey, listen, I have to admit that George Ade was responsible for one of my embarrassing moments. Seriously. You know, when you're a kid, did you ever have to, when you were a kid, one of the teachers said, this happens to everybody, you know. You have to learn a poem or you have to come in to class and you've got to read something to the class. And then you have to tell them what it means, right? You know, you ever have to do that? And they would, we had this teacher who loved that kind of stuff. Miss Robinette was, everybody just hated to be in her class because she was always doing this. And she loved to have kids go home and memorize poems. I don't know whether you ever had to memorize a poem when you were a kid, but that was one of the most hellish things that I remember from school. One of the really hellish things. And I remember one particular poem that I had to remember. I had to learn. They called it memorizing a poem. I don't know what good it is to memorize a poem. I guess in a way, I suppose it is good because most people have no memory at all. And it's a good idea to teach people to memorize things, you know? I made it when you stop to think of it that way. But this Miss Robinette assigned each one of us a different poem. And, you know, you had no choice. So she just said, and now I want you to do this one on page 28, this one there on page 42, and I was given one on page 36. And I'm sitting, I hated it. You know, I used to get that sick feeling in my gut right away when they talked about the poetry part of school. I really hated. Now other kids love it. You know, the romantic, dreamy type. They love that, but I didn't go for it at all. And so, on this particular moment in time, to quote Mr. Dean, I was told to memorize the following poem. I'm not going to read the poem. I just remember the opening of it. I don't remember any more than the opening. And I'll tell you why I remember the opening is because I had such a fantastically rotten time trying to memorize this poem. And my mother's got the book. She keeps correcting me. And I got so desperate at one point that I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. And she says, now you're going to come out. It's not going to do any good. You're going to learn that now. You're going to learn it. If other kids can learn it, you're going to learn it. Oh, gee. She said, come on, you're going to now come on out. Now listen, if you don't come out, I'm going to tell your father. Well, and I had trouble learning the opening. maybe, Freudian rejection. I was rejecting the whole concept. See, I couldn't even get the first line. She said, what do you mean you can't remember the first line? And I'd say, okay, I'll start at the top. Now I'll go from the beginning again. You mean you can't remember the first word? Oh, come on. My kid brother's sitting there smirking. He's a grade and a half behind me, and he didn't have to remember anything where he was. They were just still fooling around with finger paints. All you had to remember was to keep your hand out of the pot. That's about all. So, I finally got the first line, and I just got it by repeating it over and over and again. I would just repeat it, until finally I could say it without even knowing it. It's like, like songs that you repeat. You don't think of the term, what the words mean or anything. So the poem went like this. I tear her tattered ensign down. Long may it wave on high. That's the opening. That's all I'm going to tell you, because that's all I remember. Do you remember such a poem? I tear her tattered ensign down, long may it wave on high. Well, there were 94 other verses at least to this thing, and I had to remember them all. And it had to do with a boat. This had to do with the boat, see, and what the boat was a very famous boat. What boat am I talking about? I tear her tattered ensign down, long may it wave on high. Now, that doesn't make much sense when you stop to think of it right there. I tear her tattered ensign down, long may it wave on high. But that's the poem. Well, I used to get so bugged, at having to learn this stuff. So about halfway through that last semester with Miss Robinette, she says, now I want all of you to bring in something from home to read to the class. It can be a poem, it can be anything. Well, all the kids brought stuff, and so my family we had this bookcase, see, and in the bookcase were all the stuff that my old man read, and the books my mother read, and they had nothing to do with the books I read. See, it's a totally different scene, and so I figured I was going to get something official out of the bookcase. Well, now I could have taken. There was a great book there called The Claw of Fu Manchu. Now, I could have read, that was a goodie. We also had a collection of books with titles like She. Did you ever see that one? She by H. Rider Haggard. It was made into a movie. And there was this one book. Here, this book. Now, where these books came from was my old man. He was not a reader type. I'll have to tell you this. It was not he was not a reader type, but he bought some bookcases once at a used furniture store, and all these books came with it. Okay, this is WOR, New York. Now, don't put them down. Do you know that I know one store out in Jersey where you can get wallpaper that looks like the backs of a beautiful collection of contemporary literature, ranging all the way from Philip Roth through J. Bruce Friedman on back and forth by way of Norman Mailer, and I'm even on one of them, which I consider kind of great. And you can buy this wallpaper. You just put it up. It looks like your whole room is just filled with these magnificent volumes. And what's good is that they don't have to keep, like regular books. They don't have to be dusted, and you don't have this feeling of guilt that you got all these books and you haven't read anything but TV Guide. And even then you didn't read that. The only time you read that was once they had this piece about Lorne Greene. Inside the life of Lorne Greene in 3 parts, a major profile, that kind of thing. And so you feel guilt when you've got a book around you haven't read. You agree with that. This is a subtle kind of guilt, especially if it's a $7.95 book that's thick, and it looks very official, like a Rise and Fall and Decline of the West, And here you are, sitting there squatting in front of the boob tube watching the Knicks. And so you can buy wallpaper, and of course you can change it. You can take this wallpaper down. It's this stick-on kind. You just zip it off. See. And if you get tired of looking at books of contemporary nature, you can zip it off, and you can put on a classical library. You can go all the way from Aeschylus, all the way on up through, Bertrand Russell, Henry James, the whole great mob that wrote all the fantastic literature that comprises the Western world. Everything's there. And it just comes. It's only about $6 a sheet. And for culture, that isn't too bad. I mean, if you live in New Jersey, you need a little something. Now, if on the other hand, you're getting tired of that, did you know that you can get wallpaper like this? You think I'm kidding you. You can get wallpaper that looks like you've got a window in the room. You can get wallpaper that looks like you've got a big picture window that looks out, let's say, on the Caribbean. And you can see the ocean there. And you can see a cruise ship or something out there in the distance, you know. If you don't want to look at Route 22, you can. Now, on the other hand, if you live, say, in Jamaica, and you get tired of looking out at the ocean all the time, that can be a drag. You look at it, you know, for 115 years. You can get wallpaper that looks like you're looking right out on Route 1 in Secaucus. A lot of rotten-looking bars, you know, and used car lots and all that. And so, you know, what the hell? I mean, oh, sure. You know that there's an air conditioning unit now that is available. Now, you think I'm making this up? That's unfortunate, as most people do. But there is an air conditioning unit that is available. It has taken cognizance of the fact that people are like goldfish. Do you know what you do with a goldfish? Any kind of a fish. You ever have a goldfish? Gordon, did you ever own one? You've had fish, though. I mean, you know, in a tank, right? Okay. You know that what you do with a fish, you have to be careful about his environment. And you don't just take, you know, a tank, fill it up with water, and throw the fish in there. No way. The fish has to get used to the water. And some fish just never do, you know. And so people are like this. Never occurred to you that if I were to take you right out of South Plainfield now, or you know, East Patchogue, or say 114th Street, or wherever it is you happen to be hanging around right now, and you're a lifelong resident of that, and I plunked you down into Monon, Indiana, you'd get the twitch. You'd get the twitch, man. I mean, it would take you a hell of a long time to acclimate yourself. Not to even just the obvious thing like the food, but to the sounds in the air, the smell, the way the water tastes. You know, when you're putting some water in your bourbon, that makes it taste. I mean, the way the local beer tastes, the way the accents of the people are, all this stuff makes you profoundly nervous. You can't put your finger on it. So this air conditioning company now has an air conditioning unit that you can set up. It's got a little tank in it. You can select aromas that this air conditioning unit just sprays out at you, that is in a sense suggestive of your earlier environment. So if you grew up, say, living in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and at night when you'd open the window, you would smell the sea, right? If you lived in New Bedford, there it is. Now, all of a sudden, you find yourself living on 28th Street. Well, you open the window, and what do you smell? Jersey, right? So, this is very easily taken care of. You have this air conditioning unit that fits in the window, and you set it to sea. You set it over there, and you can even select what time of the year. You know, the sea smells different times of the year, as you know. You can set it sea, late spring, and then turn the baby on. There you are, and you begin to calm down. Now, the reverse, of course, is true. Very true. Oh, let me tell you, many a New Yorker gets the twitch when he wakes up in a place like Olathe, Kansas. Why? Well, because he's used to just the general atmosphere of New York. It's so much part of your ingrained life. It's ingrained deep in your marrow of your bones. You don't even know you're used to it. So you can now get the essence of Eastern Seaboard megalopolis, is what they call it. Now, that can fit New York, it can fit Jersey, it can fit Staten Island, and all you do when you get to Olathe, Kansas, and there you are. What happens in Olathe, Kansas? You open the window, what do you smell? Endless prairies, heat baked in the sun. This makes a man very nervous. I remember one time sitting in a train one night with a guy, a troop train. And we traveled all night long from the eastern seaboard. We're traveling back out towards the great vast plains, and dawn came up. And this guy, his name was Carlin. I always remember him. Carlin. I wonder if he's listening. I mean, I don't know. He's from New York somewhere. Anyway, the dawn came up, and it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up first, and I was sitting next to the aisle. He was sitting next to the window asleep. His head was down. And the train was rolling on, and we woke up. I woke up at least, and I look out, and I see nothing but the great vast plains stretching to the horizon. It was the wheat fields of Kansas. Now, if you've never seen the great vast plains, you know, I don't know. Now, to me, this was a very normal sight. You know, I just look out, oh, yeah, you know. I remember Carlin waking up. He woke up and he went, oh, hey, what's that? He said, what is that? I says, well, look at it. He says, whoa, wow. It was a frightening sight to him. It was like looking out to sea when you didn't expect to look at the sea. And it is sea-like in its own way. And so a guy living in Olathe, Kansas, suddenly, you know, who's from, just say from Union City, could very well find himself really on the edge of a breakdown if he doesn't take the steps. And so you can turn this thing on. You can set it for northern Jersey, and you know you get the smell of yeah, well, you know, you know how it is. You know, the cotton head comes drifting, and you know all your wonderful old friendly smells. Now the sounds are like that too. You can't ignore the fact that sounds. And so a guy who lives up in Maine, for example, he's used to the sound, the quiet sound in the distance always of wind blowing through trees in the spring and that. Well, now you think you'd like that, of course. Would you? Would you like the sound of frogs in the distance if you live, say, here in New York all the time? Well, I don't know. You know, you can't be so quick about saying this. And so the sounds are really part of our lives. And so you can get the sound now. Many people can't sleep when they move to the country. Over a couple of years, they have trouble sleeping. And so you can now get, in the same air conditioning unit, by the way, the sound of distant traffic. It's just distant, you know, horns blowing in the distance, you know, occasional fist fight breaking out, you know, and you hear a crash, you know, the sound of cops chasing a bunch of guys that had just stripped a Ford, you know, and it's all part of your life, you know. It's just like, I'm sure that if you didn't have a commercial, if there was no commercial, if one day you turned down the TV set and mysteriously all commercials disappeared, within 2 or 3 hours you'd begin to notice, you know, something's funny. You get the throbbing over your head, right over your eye, see. That throbbing. And so they help you, you know, to keep you going. We got a few little goodies here.
That's a nifty new car. How much? Oh, super. Including tinted glass? Oh, disc brakes? White walls? Reclining buckets? How about an electric clock?
Don't let a lowball sticker price fool you. The true cost of a new car is the price the way you want it, not strict. The Datsun 710 comes with all those extra standards, things other cars charge extra for. Plus full carpeting, electric rear window defogger, full wheel covers, and lots more. And don't forget Datsun's great gas mileage, low maintenance, and high resale value. Take a test drive in a Datsun 710 2-door sedan, 4-door sedan, a hardtop, or the new 5-door wagon soon. When you compare costs, true costs, you'll see that Datsun really does save.
Oh, yeah. Get to know what the true cost of a Datsun is. Drop into one of the dealers in New York, New Jersey, or Fairfield County. Right. You have another goodie. Speaking of New York accents.
Gramercy Park Close of 61 West 23rd Street in New York says, the president said you should shop for bargains. The problem is you don't know where. If you want high-quality men's clothing at prices that still make sense, here's what to do. Go to the 6th floor of the factory building at 61 West 23rd Street. Just go through the big iron gate. Gramercy Park will show you the kind of clothes that not only look good, they are good. They're well-tailored, they fit, and they ease the money squeeze of the middle-income man, especially the man who wears a suit to work every day. You can ease the squeeze on your clothing expenses. Let Gramercy Park show you the kind of clothing that kept these talented tailors in business for over 78 years. Gramercy Park is open to 7, Saturday to 6, and on Sunday from 10 to 5. The address is 61 West 23rd Street, New York.
Okay, we'll let you off the hook for a while, right? But, it's funny. It really is when you think about the human being and what he needs to reassure him that he's still alive. You ever thought about that? That he's still alive and everything is normal. Now, for example, here's a great example. I'm going to tie it in with a commercial because it's a great example of that. New York. Now, I think I've lived long enough in New York, and I'm part enough of New York life to have a little understanding of it. New York, I think in New York, the kvetch or the complaint is so much part of New York that we feel uncomfortable when we're not with it, when we're not without it. And major saints in New York are always major kvetchers. The more what's a kvetch? Well, it's kind of a whining complaint. The more you complain, the greater the hero you'll be in this city. Now, as an example of that, if you walk into some restaurant, say someplace, and you say just a greasy spoon type, and you sit down and you drink the coffee, and you say to the girl, this happened to me the other night in a place, you say, "Hey, this is really great coffee." She's thrown. She says, "Well, what?" You say, "Well, this is really great coffee." She looks at you very suspicious, like as if you're going to proposition her then, see? Or something. Because nobody ever comes in and says, "Hey, man, this is really great." And so you got to complain constantly. And that's part, incidentally, of a larger thing in New York. Now, here's an example. New York Magazine now is based largely on the kvetch of always about something, see? Constantly. Now, here's an example. It says, here's a goodie. Hey, it starts out, it says, "Now this message from New York Magazine. The Shah of Iran will be the king of the world by 1976. Sound impossible? Well, you won't think so after you read this week's New York Magazine." So it's another siren in the night, because in it, financier and best-selling author Paul Erdman constructs a scenario of that all-too-possible future. It's fiction now, but it's based on known fact, and its implications are incredible. Erdman believes that the Shah of Iran can take over the world by 1976. In New York Magazine, he tells you how the Shah will neutralize the Russians, Western Europe, and the United States. In 2 days, he will take over the whole Persian Gulf area, giving him control of virtually all the world's oil. And then, Erdman writes in New York Magazine, the Shah will double oil prices, and the world economy will collapse, and the Shah will own the world. Bum, ba-dum, bump. What's his plan? Read this in the current issue of New York Magazine. Sounds a lot like the old, that's a rewrite, you know. How many times have you come across the plot of the sinister, either Oriental or mid-Oriental, who is bound to, he's driven to take over the world, right? All right, can you name some of those characters? Who? I mean, fiction. Dr. Fu Manchu, correct. Who else? All right, a James Bond movie was based on that, right? Dr. No. Who else? Yeah, corny. In other words, this is a rewrite of the same thing, that he's sitting there cackling, could take over the whole world. And, of course, in New York, that is very, that would be considered very much in part and parcel with the, with the way life is, because the New Yorker is always expecting the worst. And any time he gets doesn't get the worst, he figures it's a con. And then it becomes the worst. And so the leading kvetch, in other words, if you can learn to kvetch, great. You're considered a really creative, hard-hitting person in New York, which is all part of the scene. Now, I speak of this because I'm also a public entertainer, and I know that any time I come out with a major kvetch on the show, oh boy, John, now Shepard's finally relevant. He's really sent it. And so this is a part of our time. So I would suggest that if you move outside of New York, and you're not going to hear a lot of that in a lot of parts of the country, because they don't have the same tradition of the kvetch in other areas. And that doesn't mean that they don't have complaints. They just don't. They don't walk around. In other words, there's not as much self-pity in other parts of the country, and conversely, there's not as much self-aggrandizement in other parts. I'm much more sensitive than all those others out there. So this is also a New York thing. So I would suggest that when you go out there, get yourself a tape recorder, walk around any place in 6th Avenue, 7th Avenue, 5th Avenue, anytime. Keep the tape recorder running for about 3 or 4 hours, and you will have recorded enough emergency kvetch, just general background griping, so that when you get out in a place like, say, Olathe, you can, check into the Howard Johnson there, and you get a little nervous with all these cheerful people walking around. You can turn on the kvetch, pick up your copy of New York. You'll be right back there, where life is hard, life is earnest, life is real, and ain't we great? Would you please hit the button, please? Oh, come on, sing. Come on, don't be a sorehead. Right. It's your old favorite. Someday you'll own. This thing is getting to be a part of your life, isn't it? Someday you'll own you'll own Generals. Hey, whether you drive a sports car, sedan, compact, or limousine, General Tire has the tires you need at prices you can afford. And they have all kinds of beautiful tires. They're round and rich and beautiful smelling, and they just great tires, quality that assures you dependability with every tire you buy. And you'll find that at the General Tire headquarters. Sooner or later, you'll own Generals, and in Plainfield, it's General Tire Service at 815 West Front Street. Stop and ask for Big Herb. And sing right out loud, right at him while he's eating his blimpie. Sing it to him. Let him know that you're patriotic, too. Sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Yeah, poor Herb. You'll own Generals. Sooner or later, you own Generals. This is the Fable of the Visitor who got a lot for $3. And this is what I read one time in Miss Robinette's class, and I was innocent. Innocent! I knew no more about George Ade than you, dear walking around citizen, know about Ambrose Bierce, which is practically nothing, right? The Fable of the Visitor who got a lot for $3. How many of us? How many of you tonight? The power of the human being to believe in any passing, quote, science. Grasp it and pay great amounts of money for it. I mean, how many people every week, every Wednesday, go to a little office over on, say, East 72nd Street, lie down on a couch and blab away for about 45 minutes. And the guy rings it up, $55, and you come back next week and do it again, right? Oh, all right. And it's great. It's great. The Fable of the Visitor who got a lot for $3. Mr. Ade discusses that particular human tendency in this fable. The Learned Phrenologist. Now, you know what a phrenologist is, don't you? Well, he was a scientist that they believed in the 19th century. It was another century. Of course, they weren't as smart as we are they? No. But in the 19th century, they believed in phrenology, and guys had degrees in it, believe it or not. And the phrenologist could tell you your character by reading the bumps on your head. The phrenologist, learned of course, sat in his office surrounded by his whiskers. Now, you know that guy that you go over to see on East 78th Street often wears a set of whiskers to give you that godlike... Well, he wants to look a little bit like the doctor himself. Old Dr. F, right? The learned phrenologist sat in his office surrounded by his whiskers. Now and then he put a forefinger to his brow, and he glanced at the mirror to make sure that he still resembled William Cullen Bryant. Near him, on a table, was a pallid head made of plaster of Paris and ornamented with small labels. On the wall was a chart showing clearly that the orangutan does not have Daniel Webster's facial angle. I wonder if this graph is played out, asked the learned phrenologist of himself as he waited. Is science up against it or what? Haven't had a customer in days. Then he heard the fall of heavy feet and resumed his imitation. The door opened, and there came into the room a tall, rangy person with a head in the shape of a Rocky Ford cantaloupe. Aroused from his meditation, the learned phrenologist glanced up at the stranger as through a glass darkly and pointed significantly to a red plush chair. The easy mark collapsed into the boarding house chair, and the man with more whiskers than Darwin ever saw stood behind him and carefully ran his fingers over his head, tarantula-wise. Well, said the learned phrenologist. Well, by George, there's enough benevolence here to do a family of 8. This is fantastic. Courage. Great Scott, feel that courage. Why, Admiral Dewey's got the same kind of lump right over the left ear. Feel it there? Oh, yes, love. It's just a tremendous head. This is and here, the sensitivity bulge. Feel it right there, back over your collar? That's sensitivity. You have more sensitivity to metaphysical thought and penetration than Charles Eliot Norton. It's a magnificent head. Can you feel it there over your left shoulder? Well, I can feel something, replied the human being with a rapt smile. Yes, wit, compassion, poetic talent. Right here where I've got my thumb. It's tremendous. Well, you have a rare combination here in your head, sir. I don't know what your present occupation is, but you ought to be the president of a theological seminary at least. Kindly slip me $3 before you pass out. Well, the tall man separated himself from 2 days' pay and then went out into the street and pushed people off the sidewalk. He thought so well of himself. And thereafter, as before, he drove a truck. But he was always glad to know that he could have been a president of a theological seminary. And the moral of that fable is, a good jolly is worth whatever you pay for it. I think that's true.
Oh, boy, I can't believe it's 7:30.
It's 7:30, Marge.
My first day back on the job after 20 years. I'm in bed 8 hours, and I feel just exhausted. I'll like it through today.
Take a nap at lunchtime.
Oh, sure. Then they'll be sorry they hired me. They'll think I'm too old.
You should have listened to me last night when I told you to try Compose.
On those occasional nights when you have trouble falling asleep, try Compose and wake up refreshed. Compose simply lets you relax and unwind so your body is able to fall asleep more easily. And of course, by falling asleep more easily, you're going to feel better the next morning. Remember, the more easily you fall asleep, the better you feel the next morning.
Harry, I'm home.
How'd you do the first day at work?
I think they like me, Harry.
Great. Let's go out and celebrate.
Oh, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to bed.
And if you can't sleep tonight?
I'll take Compose.
Compose. Use only as directed. And remember, the more easily you fall asleep, the better you feel the next morning.
Yeah, and speaking of celebrating, we'd like to suggest you make or somebody here in the copy department, make your Thanksgiving dinner an occasion. Go where the knowledgeable New Yorkers go. Take Mom, Pop, and the whole family to the Press Box Steakhouse, 139 East 45th Street. And they are going to serve a truly sumptuous turkey Thanksgiving dinner. That's a word you don't hear much, sumptuous. Thanksgiving, that's a 19th century word like scrumptious. You ever hear that word? That's another one. Turkey Thanksgiving dinner for only $7.95. That's not bad. A whole Thanksgiving dinner. That includes candy, nuts, fruits, all the apple cider you care to drink. And maybe if they're not looking, you can slip something in it. Call host Mike Wayne at YU6-4565. 4565, Yukon 6-4565. That's the press box. And you know, you heard that thing that I just read, right? I read that in Miss Robinette's class. That very fable. The kids are all sitting there. See? I read this. All the rest of them were reading stuff like, Raggedy Ann, Raggedy Andy. They read a page out of the Oz book. I read this, and she said, it's very interesting. Would you tell us what it means now? I said, well, a man had a head looked like a cantaloupe. She said, yes, but what does it mean? This other guy had a whiskers. But you haven't told us what it means. Now, you read what does a jolly mean? You just read you read the moral. It says, a good jolly is whatever you pay for. It's worth whatever you pay for it. What is a jolly? Well, up to that point, the word, I had always thought, it had something to do with Santa Claus. Jolly St. Nick. I didn't know what jolly meant, except it meant happy. Ho, ho, ho. That's jolly. See? I said, well, it's like Santa Claus is jolly. She says, no, it doesn't mean that. And I began to get this feeling of embarrassment, the fantastic embarrassment that I had read something I didn't know what the hell it was about. And all the kids were all looking at me dumbly. And at that point, Josway started to laugh. You know, ha, 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 you know. Have you ever been laughed at aloud by your fellow classmates? Of course you have. That's one of the great fears that all of mankind carries forward throughout his entire life. Can you imagine Charlie Bullard sitting there at the Equitable Life Insurance Company with all the other insurance men around, and 342 insurance men are laughing at him? Oh, Charlie laid one again today. Oh, look at him. He came back. He just insured an ostrich. Oh, my God. He's sitting there. Well, now I think I know what it's about. I'm not so sure that Miss Robinette even knew. Now I think I know what that moral means. Indeed, friends, I'd like to suggest to you that a good jolly is worth whatever you pay for it. And it's wise to remember that from time to time when you're getting ready to lay something out. And then when you turn around and start complaining, you know, that's what you wanted in the first place. I mean, I wonder whether people would drink if they didn't get hangovers. I think people drink to get a hangover. Of course, retribution for sin, all the rest of it. Oh, yeah, you could get metaphysical about the existence if you're careful. Or if you're often not careful, you'll do that. So stand up, friends. Make your knee work again. That's it. There, it's working there. Have you been in lately for your test, huh? Okay. Positive, huh? Oh. Well, I can't figure out what is good, positive or negative. I mean, I'll have to ask Marcus Welby the next time he shows up on Channel 5. Sit up there and let me run my hands over your forehead. What a beautiful mind you have. Hey, this is WOR New York. Stay tuned for In Conversation.